Norrie, thank you for talking to me. Before we talk about marriage equality, could you tell us the difference, because there's often a lot of confusion between transgender, intersex and transsexual.
Well, you see, with equality, we don't have to worry about who's what, or who's got what bits, or whether their partner's got the same bits, or whether their partner still has the same bits if they've changed, and it just doesn't matter. So that's a great thing about going for equality. I don't think people should have different legal rights based on whether they're classified as transgender or gay or bisexual or straight. In fact, as it turns out, a lot of people have got special rights if they're straight, and they miss out on those rights if they're not straight. That has to change. Doesn't have to be a big legal definition about who's what. Everybody should just have equal rights.
How do you define yourself?
Well, I'm legally sex non-specific. That's what the High Court hammered out.
You were the first, weren't you?
I'm the first to be declared by a court to have my sex non-specific. A couple of other people in Australia have had their sex listed as X. But that wasn't by declaration of a court and didn't have as, I guess, wide-reaching ramifications. Or I'm sure they did great work too, I don't know. Mine was the case the world made a big fuss about, but apparently some people are making a fuss about them not being made a fuss of. So it's important to mention that many other people took little steps too and did things that made this thing happen. And this was only one small step too. I mean, the court case wasn't the end of the revolution. It's an ongoing thing. When I see things like the Caitlyn Jenner TV show and young people doing their own YouTube speak-outs about being transgender, or indeed about not fitting the binary, that's awesome.
Why is marriage equality such an important issue to you?
Because equality is an important issue to me. And some people get special rights or privileges based on whether they're married or based on whether their parents are married. This affects little kids. What about the children? Yeah, let's think about the children who are an actual relation, who are part of family groups where if the parents are not in a married relationship, they don't have the same securities. They don't, yeah, it's not a good situation. And it's also what people can aspire to. If you come from a family where you've got same-sex parents, you're made to feel that there's something not quite right about your family because your mum and your parents aren't married. Your parents aren't Mrs. and Mrs. It's something different.
I often find that many people assume that marriage equality, there's a focus on lesbian and gay people, and sometimes transgendered people or intersex people can feel a bit left out of it. How do you feel?
It impacts hugely on the transgender community, and well, for people who are transgender and people whose partners are transgender. If one partner, if a pair get heterosexually married and one partner wants to transition, they can't change their legal documentation. They can't travel on a passport that matches what they have physically. Obviously, definitely are now, no question about it. They've had all the operations, they've identified as female, or whatever the case is, but their passport can't say that because they're married, and the government is so terrified of same-sex relationships. It says these two people who have been married, who have probably had kids, been devoted to loving each other the rest of their lives, have to get divorced so that one person can get a passport that matches who they are. And that's the government breaking up families.
Will, in the laws that are being proposed by those who are proposing marriage equality, are transgendered intersex people being catered for adequately, do you think?
When marriage just becomes two people without mention of what sex they are, yeah, of course, that fixes it for everybody. I mean, at the moment we're in a ridiculous situation, whereas if I identified as fully female, maybe got my tits done and went on hormones, I could marry a guy. Because I've had the privilege, I'm white, and that means I've had the wherewithal to get the operation. So this gives me a right to do something that someone who was pre-op couldn't do, or someone that was just identifying as gay couldn't do. Why do I get special rights just because I've identified in a certain way and paid money to get something? I can't just identify as female and marry my partner if we look like two boys, both got willies. But if one of us has got the money to surgery to get rid of one of those willies, then we can do something. That doesn't seem right that someone can pay for that privilege.
Have you found much support from other lesbian and gay people?
Marriage equality is something that's got a huge number of people mobilised, including in the gay and lesbian community. People say, what about starving young unemployed people? What about the dreadful situation for gay people in Africa and other countries where they're actively prosecuting? Yes, those are dreadful things, but that's not what people are focused on. They're focused on what's happening in their own lives and their families and their gay friends and their lesbian daughters, and marriage equality is the issue that's got people mobilised. So you've got to, I guess, engage with people with wherever their energy is, and that's where it is at the moment. And maybe we can get some of them to then look at what are we doing with gay refugees, putting them in a country that's not gay friendly, Papua New Guinea.
Absolutely. When we get marriage equality, has the campaign for LGBTQI rights finished?
Of course not. Just as the campaign to get beyond the binary didn't stop when I won a High Court case. There's always more to be done in terms of equality, but it's an important milestone. The very fact that America now has it is a great milestone for the American LGBTQ community. When we get it, it's a great milestone for us, but of course we don't have equality in the rest of the world, in the countries we trade with, in the countries that our corporations make money out of. There are gay and lesbian people being prosecuted and persecuted and killed for being who they are. So there's much work to be done before we've got social justice for us. That's the great thing about being a social justice activist. You're always going to have a job.
We've obviously had the referendum in Ireland on marriage equality, and that's provided some momentum. A lot of people have talked about a referendum or a plebiscite here. What are your thoughts on that, or should it be up to the politicians?
It was constitutionally necessary in Ireland, because that's the way their constitution was set up. It's not constitutionally necessary here. It was done here by an act of parliament. We had marriage equality until, it was about 13 years ago, John Howard on Friday, August the 13th, remember it was a Black Friday, when they suddenly decided that marriage had to be between a man and a woman, without defining what a man and a woman is, and that's where the whole thing could fall down. But
how can people get involved?
But it's certainly that act meant that didn't just mean that gay people effectively couldn't get married, or that bisexual people in a same-sex relationship couldn't get married. It also meant that things became problematic for transgender people and people without any particular sex. Because if marriage is between a man and a woman, well, how can I get married if I'm not a man or a woman? And the High Court has said I'm not a man or a woman, I'm a person who's not a man or a woman. My sex is non-specific. The United Nations guarantees the rights of every person to marry and form a family. It doesn't say it guarantees the rights of all men and women to marry each other, or it guarantees the rights of every person to marry and form a family. So there's a possible High Court challenge there, but these things take about 5 or 6 years, and hopefully we'll get legal marriage equality in Australia well before then. Sorry, should I be talking to you or the camera?
You can talk to either, absolutely either, as long as the viewers can watch it. By the way, the tail in the background, or in the foreground, was the wonderful cat. Just carrying on with the interview, what do you think the timeline is for marriage equality?
Sooner rather than later.
A couple of years, a year?
Oh, within a year. If it doesn't happen before Tony Abbott goes, it'll happen immediately with the new government. Yeah, he won't outlast resistance.
How can people get involved in the campaign for marriage equality? What suggestions do you make?
Letting their local MP know how they feel about it if they haven't already, and encouraging their family and friends to do the same, because it's not just about gay people. Everyone, if you're not a gay person, you know someone who's gay. And if you think you don't know someone who's gay, you do know someone who's gay, but you just don't know they're gay, and there's maybe some problem that means they can't share that. I don't know why you would have that attitude.
Anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, mobilise for marriage equality, but don't forget that equality for all is what we're working on. There's many injustices in the world, and we don't have to put up with them. We can do something about them. When I was young, we wouldn't have imagined that marriage equality would even be on the table. Back then, being gay was illegal. You got locked up for kissing someone you fancied. We didn't imagine we'd ever have the right to actually get families, but it's something, of course, we deserve. Everyone deserves. And you get these things, so wherever you are, wherever you're starting from, realise that however impossible it seems, if it's something you deserve in the long run, in the long game, that's what happens. Social justice outs in the end. It's a very long game sometimes, though.
Norrie, thank you very much.
Cheers.